He called her his maid in front of the rich and powerful. But seconds later, his boss stepped on stage and called her the woman running the entire event. Before the story continues, if you enjoy powerful African stories with deep life lessons, subscribe now. You won't want to miss what happens next. The city glowed with luxury as the grand business gala approached its peak. Crystal chandeliers lit the hall, reflecting wealth and ambition on every polished surface. Powerful executives laughed loudly, holding glasses that cost more than most salaries. Waiters moved swiftly, careful not to interrupt the elite conversations. At the entrance stood Daniel, dressed in an expensive tuxedo with a confident smile. Beside him was his wife, Amina, wearing a simple, elegant gown. Her calm eyes hid years of silent endurance. Tonight would change everything she had endured. Daniel adjusted his cufflinks as colleagues approached him one by one. He enjoyed the attention and praise that came with his rising career. Each compliment inflated his ego, pushing humility further away. When someone glanced at Amina, Daniel's smile tightened. He quickly waved his hand dismissively toward her. "She's just my maid," he said casually with a laugh. Some people chuckled, others looked confused. Amina lowered her gaze, but did not respond. Her silence spoke louder than words. Inside Amina's heart, memories stirred like restless shadows. She remembered the early days when Daniel admired her intelligence. She remembered building dreams together on broken furniture. Success had slowly hardened him into someone unrecognizable. Each insult over the years had carved quiet strength into her soul. Tonight felt different, heavier, decisive. She inhaled slowly, grounding herself in patience. Her hands trembled briefly before becoming still. This was not the night to explain herself. The gala continued with speeches, applause, and soft instrumental music. Daniel moved freely among executives, basking in false admiration. He spoke of ambition, strategy, and future partnerships. No one suspected the truth hidden behind his confident posture. Amina stood near the back, observing everything with careful attention. She noticed the stage setup and the microphones being tested. She noticed the event coordinators whispering respectfully toward her direction. A faint smile touched her lips before fading. Daniel's boss, Mr. Lawrence, had not yet arrived. His absence made the room restless and curious. Everyone knew the night's host was someone exceptional. Rumors circulated about a powerful figure behind the event. Daniel hoped the host would be impressed by him. He imagined promotion letters and private meetings. He glanced at Amina again, irritated by her quiet presence. To him, she represented a past he wanted erased. He never imagined she represented his future collapse. Amina recalled the countless nights she worked while Daniel slept. She remembered funding the ideas that launched his career. Her company remained invisible by design. She preferred impact over attention, results over praise. Tonight's gala was her vision, her execution, her success. Every detail reflected months of relentless work. The venue, guests, and sponsors answered to her authority. Daniel had never bothered to ask where the opportunities came from. His ignorance was now complete. As the clock struck 8, anticipation filled the room. The music softened, and conversations faded. Event staff moved into precise positions with practiced coordination. The stage lights brightened slowly. Daniel straightened his shoulders, ready to impress. He whispered a warning to Amina to stay out of sight. She nodded obediently, as she always had. The obedience was strategic, not submissive. The moment of revelation was approaching quietly. Mr. Lawrence finally entered the hall to loud applause. His presence commanded immediate respect. Executives stood instinctively as he passed. Daniel smiled proudly, believing association alone elevated him. Mr. Lawrence scanned the room carefully, his eyes sharp and observant. He paused briefly when his gaze met Amina's. A look of recognition crossed his face. He nodded subtly with deep respect. Daniel noticed nothing at all. The microphone crackled, as Mr. Lawrence stepped onto the stage. Silence spread across the hall like a held breath. Daniel leaned forward, eager and alert. Amina lifted her head, composed and steady. Mr. Lawrence smiled warmly before speaking. He praised the vision behind the gala. He spoke of leadership, humility, and unseen brilliance. Each word felt intentional and weighted. Daniel felt proud without knowing why. Mr. Lawrence spoke about the host's remarkable achievements. He described a leader who valued integrity over ego. He mentioned innovation built quietly behind the scenes. The audience listened with admiration and curiosity. Daniel nodded enthusiastically, assuming praise would soon fall on him. He imagined applause directed his way. Amina remained still, her breathing calm. The truth hovered just beyond the moment. The room was unaware it stood on the edge of shock. Mr. Lawrence paused dramatically, letting silence stretch. He adjusted the microphone and smiled again. "Before we continue," he said calmly, "I want to properly introduce tonight's host." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Daniel straightened fully, heart racing with anticipation. He glanced around to ensure Amina stayed hidden. Mr. Lawrence's gaze shifted toward the back of the room. The pause felt endless and deliberate. Daniel followed his boss's line of sight slowly. His smile faded into confusion. The crowd turned collectively, eyes searching. Amina met their gaze without fear. Her posture changed, shoulders firm, head high. The lights subtly adjusted, illuminating her presence. Whispers filled the hall instantly. Daniel felt a strange tightening in his chest. His mind rejected what his eyes were seeing. Mr. Lawrence raised his hand toward Amina. "Please welcome the visionary behind tonight's event," he announced. The room erupted in applause. Amina stepped forward with calm authority. Each step echoed loudly in Daniel's ears. His face drained of color instantly. The word "maid" repeated cruelly in his mind. Reality struck him without mercy. His breath caught painfully in his throat. Amina reached the stage gracefully. Applause continued, growing louder and more respectful. Mr. Lawrence stepped aside to give her space. Daniel stood frozen, unable to move or speak. His colleagues stared at him in disbelief. Some faces showed pity, others judgment. Amina took the microphone with steady hands. Her eyes met Daniel's briefly. There was no anger in them, only clarity. The room waited in silence. She thanked everyone for attending in a calm, confident voice. Her words carried authority shaped by experience. She spoke of collaboration, resilience, and purpose. The audience listened intently, fully engaged. Daniel felt smaller with every sentence she spoke. His lies unraveled publicly, without a single accusation. Amina never mentioned him directly. Her dignity became his punishment. The contrast between them was undeniable. As she spoke, memories haunted Daniel violently. He remembered mocking her ambitions. He remembered dismissing her intelligence. He remembered calling her nothing in front of others. Now she stood as everything he had underestimated. The applause grew again at the end of her speech. Daniel could barely hear it through the ringing in his ears. His legs felt weak beneath him. Pride collapsed into raw fear. When Amina handed the microphone back, the audience stood. Respect filled the hall unmistakably. Mr. Lawrence thanked her with visible admiration. Daniel remained rooted in place, unable to escape the moment. Colleagues whispered behind his back. The weight of exposure crushed him silently. Amina returned to her seat without looking at him. The space between them felt infinite. The gala continued, but Daniel's world had stopped. Daniel tried to speak, but no words came. His confidence evaporated entirely. He felt naked under judgmental glances. The mask he wore 4 years shattered completely. Amina sat composed, her expression unreadable. She knew this was only the beginning. Truth had surfaced, but consequences still waited. The night was far from over. Silence screamed louder than confrontation. Daniel had never felt so powerless. Mr. Lawrence resumed the program professionally. The gala proceeded with networking and music. Daniel stood isolated within the crowd, Every smile now felt forced and hollow. Amina spoke with executives who treated her with deep respect. Her presence commanded attention effortlessly. Daniel realized he had been living in borrowed glory. The source of his success was now undeniable. Regret clawed at him relentlessly. Fear followed closely behind. As the night approached its end, tension remained thick. Daniel knew his life had fractured irreversibly. Amina knew her silence had finally spoken. The truth had revealed itself without violence or noise. Power shifted quietly, but permanently. The gala ended, but consequences waited beyond the doors. A marriage stood at the edge of reckoning. Pride had met reality in public, and the story was only halfway told. The drive home was silent and suffocating. Streetlights passed like judgmental witnesses outside the car windows. Daniel's hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. Amina sat calmly, staring ahead without expression. The contrast between them was stark and painful. Daniel opened his mouth several times, but said nothing. Words felt useless after public exposure. Silence became the loudest punishment of all. When they reached home, Daniel finally spoke. His voice cracked as he tried to explain himself. He blamed pressure, ego, and misunderstanding. Each excuse sounded weaker than the last. Amina listened patiently without interruption. Her stillness unsettled him deeply. He expected anger, tears, or shouting. Instead, he met composure shaped by long suffering. That calm frightened him more than rage ever could. Amina finally responded in a measured tone. She spoke of respect lost slowly, insult by insult. She described how silence became survival. She explained that love cannot exist without dignity. Daniel felt every word like a blade. He tried to interrupt but failed. She was not seeking permission to speak anymore. Years of suppression had ended. Truth flowed freely now, unstoppable. Daniel dropped into a chair, overwhelmed. He realized how small his worldview had been. He understood too late that power does not need loud validation. Amina had built quietly while he performed loudly. His success depended entirely on what he had mocked. Shame wrapped around him a heavy cloak. He looked at her with new eyes, full of regret. But regret alone could not repair damage. Accountability stood waiting. Amina explained why she never revealed the truth before. She believed partnership meant shared growth. She wanted Daniel to mature on his own, but arrogance blinded him consistently. Each public insult cut deeper than the last. Tonight was not revenge, but revelation. She refused to hide anymore. Her identity deserved light and acknowledgement. Silence was no longer an option. Change was inevitable. Daniel begged for forgiveness through broken sentences. He promised change, humility, and respect. His words echoed desperation rather than conviction. Amina listened but remained unmoved. She reminded him that apologies do not erase patterns. Trust takes time to rebuild. If at all, respect must exist even in private. Public humiliation reflected private truth. This night revealed his true character. Healing would require more than words. The following morning, consequences arrived quickly. Daniel received messages from colleagues filled with awkward distance. Invitations disappeared silently. Promotions discussions were postponed indefinitely. Mr. Lawrence requested a private meeting. Daniel's stomach twisted with fear. His reputation had fractured overnight. Amina, however, moved forward confidently. Her company gained attention and praise. Power dynamics shifted permanently. Reality demanded accountability. At work, Daniel faced uncomfortable stares. Whispers followed him down corridors. He could no longer command respect automatically. Authority now required humility he had never practiced. Meanwhile, Amina held meetings with international partners. Her leadership impressed everyone involved. She carried herself with quiet authority. No one questioned her position. Her success spoke louder than explanation. Daniel felt invisible in her presence. The reversal was complete. At home, boundaries were redefined clearly. Amina insisted on mutual respect or separation. There would be no compromise on dignity. Daniel agreed nervously, aware of his fragile position. He began therapy, confronting his insecurities. The process was painful but necessary. Growth demanded discomfort he had avoided 4 years. Amina observed his efforts cautiously. Forgiveness was not guaranteed. Change would be measured over time. Public perception continued shifting rapidly. Amina became a respected figure in business circles. Her story inspired quiet admiration. Daniel became a lesson whispered carefully. He learned humility through isolation. The power he once displayed vanished entirely. He began understanding true partnership for the first time. Amina no longer dimmed her light for anyone. She embraced visibility with confidence. Strength replaced silence fully. One evening, Daniel acknowledged his deepest fear. He feared being insignificant without her success. Ego had protected his insecurity poorly. Amina listened, but did not soften immediately. Understanding did not erase harm. Growth required consistent efforts. She reminded him that love must be safe. Safety includes respect in public and private. Daniel nodded slowly, accepting truth. His journey had just begun. Months passed with visible change. Daniel practiced humility deliberately. He credited others openly and listened more. Amina noticed progress without rushing conclusions. Trust rebuilt slowly, brick by brick. Some wounds healed, others remained tender. The relationship transformed into something new. Power was no longer unbalanced. Partnership became intentional rather than assumed. Accountability guided every interaction. Growth replaced entitlement steadily. At another industry event, roles were clearly defined. Amina was introduced properly with honor. Daniel stood proudly beside her without envy. The audience respected their transparency. This time, humility defined his presence. Applause felt earned rather than borrowed. Amina met his eyes with cautious warmth. Progress, though slow, was real. Redemption demanded consistency. Lessons were learned publicly and privately. Change had become visible. Amina later reflected on her journey alone. Silence had once been her shield. Now her voice was her power. She realized dignity should never be negotiated. Success gained quietly still deserves recognition. Her patience had not been weakness, it had been preparation. The gala marked her rebirth publicly. Her identity stood firm and undeniable. Growth had replaced endurance. She no longer shrank for love. Daniel reflected on the cost of arrogance deeply. He lost status before gaining wisdom. Pain became his teacher unwillingly. He learned respect cannot be demanded. It must be lived daily. Humility reshaped his character slowly. Accountability replaced blame in his language. He stopped performing and started learning. Redemption felt uncertain, but necessary. Growth required constant self-examination. The process humbled him thoroughly. Their marriage transformed into something honest. Pretenses dissolved completely. Communication replaced silence. Boundaries replaced tolerance of disrespect. Healing required transparency from both sides. Amina allowed hope carefully. Daniel earned trust incrementally. Equality became non-negotiable. Love grew cautiously, but sincerely. The power struggle ended permanently. Mutual respect defined their future. Lessons remained etched permanently. The business world remembered the gala vividly. It became a lesson in unseen power. Many reconsidered how they treated others. Amina's story inspired quiet courage. Daniel's fall warned against ego-driven arrogance. Appearances lost their dominance. Substance gained recognition. Leadership redefined itself subtly. The ripple effects extended beyond the couple. Change influenced culture quietly. Respect gained renewed value. Amina continued building her empire strategically. Visibility no longer intimidated her. She embraced recognition without guilt. Her confidence inspired others to speak. Silence lost its grip on her identity. She understood her worth completely. Power no longer required permission. Her presence commanded respect naturally. Growth became her signature. She no longer feared being seen. Strength radiated quietly but firmly. Daniel became an advocate for respectful leadership. He shared lessons from his failure honestly. Shame transformed into responsibility. He warned others against demeaning partners. Growth made him more human. Redemption remained ongoing, not guaranteed. Accountability shaped his daily choices. He accepted consequences without resentment. Learning replaced defensiveness permanently. His transformation became genuine. Humility defined his new path. The gala that began with humiliation ended in awakening. Truth reshaped lives permanently. Power shifted without noise or violence. Silence gave way to strength. Arrogance met consequence openly. Respect reclaimed its rightful place. Amina emerged whole and unapologetic. Daniel emerged humbled, unlearning. The story became a lesson remembered widely, and dignity stood victorious in the end.